why is it so difficult for me to identify bad in my life, to realize what's truly holding me back, or what's truly keeping me in a cycle of just misery. And I find it kind of ironic how every day we're flooded with videos preaching discipline, lifestyle changes, and simply the promise of a better life if we just fix our habits. You know, on TikTok, clip after clip, like scroll after scroll of these people with these perfect lives, essentially telling us that transformation is simple. If we just resist our temptations, success will just flow. Success will come to us naturally. But what I tend to not see, or what I never see in general, is them telling you how to change and how to genuinely grow as a person. Because that's the hardest part of realizing what you could change. Having to identify what you're doing that's truly keeping you back. Because it's honestly easier said than done. You have to push back temptation that sometimes feels wired into your bones. They never tell you how to become someone you're proud of when no one's watching. That's something that you have to develop yourself. And that's an essential reason why I'm creating this series. Not to lecture you, not to sell you a fantasy or a subscription or an idea of how to become better, but to simply push you to reflect deeply on your life. Because that's something that I find myself having to do every day. Having to struggle to do every day. Having to recognize the habits that keep me stagnant. Because to understand why they hold you back is a hard part. Like you can identify, you could try to identify something that's bad in your life, but you can truly never really understand that. But it's still an essential thing you have to do, because to realize the struggle in your life allows you to turn into fuel to become a better person. Because growth doesn't simply start with discipline. It starts with honesty. Honesty towards yourself and towards your true feelings. Because when I tell you to identify bad in your life, I don't truly simply mean like supernatural things like a betrayal or a dramatic moment in your life, because that's something that everybody has. What I mean when I tell you to identify bad in your life is sometimes bad is subtle. Sometimes that bad could be a friend's subtle disrespect, like that joke that you got told by your friend that, it made you feel bad, but, like, there's something that you have to deal with. That could be that bad in your life. Or a pattern you've ignored, or that thing you continue to cling on to knowing is draining you. Whatever form it chooses to take, that power lies in choosing to acknowledge it. Because that's simply the first step in reclaiming your life. Realizing that it's bad for you and identifying how it's holding you back. Because I'm like I said, I'm trying to attempt to do that every day. I attempt to realize, and I do identify things that tend to hold me back. And although I know that it might affect me, I continue to use that, continue to keep running back to that. I want to talk about an experience in my life that forced me to realize how it was holding me back. At the beginning of this year, or the end of last year, I went through a breakup. Something everybody goes through, and I saw it coming, but it still didn't soften the blow as it goes, But it still didn't change the fact that I felt stuck. I felt insignificant, and it kind of felt like my life had paused essentially, and everything, like the world kept on moving, and like it forced me to spend days replaying the feelings, the confusion, the anger, the sadness of losing that person that you thought was close to you. But it also taught me a lesson that I couldn't ignore. And I'm grateful in a way that I realized that pain forced me to confront the parts of myself that I had been neglecting. It showed me the habits and the mindsets that kept me complacent. The prioritization had shifted from myself to someone else, and that realization was the first step in my change and my progression, and what I feel like I'm progressing. Because you also have to realize and identify that you haven't changed. I haven't changed. As much as I believe I have, sometimes I realize I'm not different from how I was. I realized and identified what was keeping me in that stagnant place in my life. What was keeping me from being able to change. And once I truly realized it and saw them clearly, I couldn't unsee them. And I hope that what I'm saying resonates with you and allows you to see that and to experience that change in your life, to experience that realization that that's truly what's holding me back. And that clarity pushed me to take control, to simply get back into the habits that were progressing my life and were progressing me as a person, my character. And that was getting back in the gym, rebuilding my routine, whether that be my sleep, my eating, my work, right? Any routine that was continuously progressing me, I was able to rebuild it. And I was able to choose growth over stagnation because of the realization that it wasn't the breakup that changed me. It was the realization it forced. It forced that change. And that's the point I want you to take with you. That the world is gonna constantly try to drain your ambition, distract you from your focus. And many people are gonna try to convince you that staying the same is a lot easier than becoming better. And many people do tend to do that because they're scared of that change. They're scared of what that entails and how it will affect them. But the truth is simple. When you feel stuck or when you feel lost and life continuously knocks you down, it's up to you to realize that you are the only one that can decide to choose to rise up. It is up to you to decide to want to change, because life is going to change you. It's going to challenge you. Life is going to test you. And if life doesn't attempt to break you, you are simply not living to the potential that you can be living to. But you get to choose whether those moments define you or refine you. And what does that mean? What does that mean in the aspect of your life, to define or refine you? Do you choose to let that realization define who you will be, or will you allow it to change you and make it and grow as a person? So simply what I want to say is, the next time you feel stagnant or overwhelmed, take a moment to reflect and realize and identify what is out of your control. So then you could take full command of what is in your control. Because that is where your power lies. That is where it lies. In your ability to take control of what you can.